the United States. But for now, we've come to the end of the video. Do let me know if the Simpsons have visited a ridiculous cameo from Godzilla, which was a welcome reminder that this is the Simpsons.
This didn't get very far, and for now, we're just stuck with a boring old Australian dollars. But despite
In fact, it was the first episode in 20 years that aired to audiences outside of the US first.
Accents are just terrible. I mean, if I wanted to sound like an Aussie stereotype, I'd say the fixtures
Complete disregard for geography. Simpson Safari was intended to be as inaccurate as possible. In season 9, The Trouble with Trillion, Homer backed out on a deal with the FBI to expose Mr. Burns.
This is the most disgusting place we've ever gone. What about Brazil? After Brazil.
The Simpsons' last major Canada episode was fairly recent, season 30's Doe Canada,
To pose as her husband. And The Simpsons really pulled no punches in the depiction of Chinese culture. And after this exhausting trek, Homer wasted all of Apu's 3 questions for the CEO. And ending with a Bollywood dance number, this episode balanced Western stereotypes of India while used to the 11 AM sunsets.
Famous man who ever lived!
Porky Pig?
So after getting lost in the desert and developing Jerusalem, say that this season 24 episode is one of the most visually stunning in Simpsons history. The group travelled across
advance here in Australia, and overall, I get a good laugh out of this episode. And thanks for inviting me on the channel, Lydia.
released on DVD. And despite this publicised backlash, The Simpsons would take
Dover.
And although he wants to give off a suave, sophisticated James Bond persona,
where Lisa winds up in Windsor, Ontario, after falling down Niagara Falls and becomes smitten with the
France's wine country. But it turns out that his devious winemaker friends Caesar and Ugolan, he exposed them for putting antifreeze in their wine. And Homer even threw the Emperor of Japan into a bin of sumo thongs.
The moon and smells like rotten eggs.
Translate everything into French and English.
I am a big fat French idiot.
Je suis un grand, gros...
Homer actually mistook him for Mr. Bean.
I can't believe we met Mr. Bean!
This dude is so Canadian, he actually wrote a book called Canadian Culture Monsters. So welcome back to the
Staff made a quick getaway from an angry mob, hurling beer cans at the helicopter. And as if
offend the locals. Other countries with very small mentions. The Simpsons and of course the comfort of a handsome kilt.
Can you believe I'm...
Thankfully, the family had a much better time on their second visit for Abe's medical treatment in season 2. And although the controversy surrounding Apu wouldn't heat up for another decade, kiss kiss bang bang.
All the work that's...
Hey, knock it off!
Excuse, not speak English.
Up, but everybody should check out our previous collab about some of the biggest continuity changes in Simpsons history.
Advised to extend the family's cruise indefinitely, the Simpsons were dumped in Antarctica as a punishment.
Toronto, and even unsuccessfully lobbying the Toronto city government to name the day the
portrayal of French stereotypes being rude, dirty, cheap, and incredibly lazy. Then in season 20, Abe was inspired to take a trip to Ireland to have a drink in an Irish pub to relive his youth. Crowded train and hiking up snow-capped mountains, the pair finally reached the Quickie Mart's head office. They quickly fell in love with Copenhagen. In fact, they even thought about staying there.
And it was here where Ned met his doobie-smoking Canadian doppelganger.
It's legal here.
Banned their episodes, who demanded apologies, and which country loved their depiction so much.
built on stereotypes, and when the family visits a nation, viewers can expect everyone to be mocked.
Yes, if you couldn't tell by my accent, I am from the south of England. Famous for scones, Norris Homer would use first, and what Irish star would make a cameo appearance. Now, this season 5 episode only spent a few minutes in India, but Homer would eventually return. He repeatedly use these travel episodes to highlight how crummy the American healthcare system is. Despite
Olympic mascot that Bart creates will always have a special place in my heart, though. This episode is also notable for being one of the few.
How do you say taco in Mexican?
Taco.
Yes, that's exactly the word I want to translate.
Taco. Don't know the ratio.
50-50?
Dicey, dicey, don't!
Showrunner Al Jean wasn't
Booning the entire country wasn't insulting enough, but introduced bullfrogs into the Australian ecosystem.
big deal, which makes sense seeing as The Simpsons was absolutely humongous in the UK. So, led by Sacha Baron Cohen as a pushy tour guide, the group visited a few holy monuments. What sounds like a recipe for disaster didn't actually cause that much controversy. But when he got there, he was disappointed to find that the town he knew called Dunkleberry had become Mr. Burns' new sports car to Rome. They visited Pisa and Pompeii before a cheese-related
Are a massive pest species to this day. They spread everywhere and just ate every.
Art and Lisa are getting along. This country is calling to us.
However, despite all of the in order to bring back some fugitives back to the US. And so Abe was taken away from his
I should have my dingo eat your baby.
Personally, I found my
Country is perfect, and Canada has plenty of bad things about it too, but I don't know if it really does the as many liberal Americans often are. You know, a place with free healthcare and a better education system.
public for appearing during the height of the war in Iraq. Overall, I feel that they did capture London.
Of Greta Wolfcastle at Paramounty Studios. You see what they did there? Aside from a few
Okay. In the season 15 episode, The Regina Monologues, the family flew to London so Abe could lift the ban in 2007. And it has to be said that this episode and presentation of incident that saw them stranded in Tuscany. And is here where they found an unlikely savior in Sucha Bob, supposedly took her flirtatious parody in good stride. The family returned once more and marched to receive a vision from an Inca god.
You've taught me a valuable lesson.
I didn't mean to,
Filled with monkeys and rat-infested slums. The country's reaction implied resentment.
took their rebuff in stride, however. 3 years later, in season 16, Homer returned to Canada as
Delve into the politics, this episode instead focused on Ned trying to redeem Homer in Jerusalem.
puck to the face. I'm sure we can handle jokes tougher than just some light teasing about our obscure restaurant.
So, cue jokes about fragile dictatorship, superstitious tribes, lip discs, and a in Beijing, and it was here where she was looking to adopt baby Ling, so enlisted the help of Homer, head out of the ground, and of course, a hippo that was afraid of water. It seems that this episode didn't
Any Winnipegger I ever meet, and the gag where the border officers who speak to Homer in his jail cell translate
appear to provoke much reaction from Tanzania, but of course was generally criticised for relying on vague showing Bart travel through various famous paintings. It just shows a smidgen of France's talents and
just chatty. I sold my business a few years ago and I miss talking to people.
meanwhile, Homer achieved short reality, only to find he had given himself a brand new makeover, now presenting the idea that the locals were far more intelligent than their new American employers, that stole their infamous bill to save the bankrupt country.
Now give it back.
In the Simpsons take on Australia, kangaroos roam the streets and koalas climb telephone poles.
Anything but the inedible, repulsive food of my native land.
With Homer also summing up the country, he could promote British tourism.
There's so much to see here. Parliament, Stratford-on-Avon, the White Cliffs of...
Back so much so that he even fell in love. But his new beau simply used him as a pawn in as gangs and poachers to freely walk into the country undisturbed. All in all, the Simpsons kidnapping.
I'm afraid that this is a kidnapping.
So that means I don't have to pay the fare.
It's the tomb of Chairman Mao.
He's like a little angel that killed 50 million people.
And rivers full of corpses, success quickly got to Homer's head. So in a recreation of the
Even soon.
Aye.
But it wasn't just a barrel of laughs, Mr. Burns' tireless
Yes, you are.
In fact, there are several jabs at Chinese censorship in this episode, which is it had to be groundskeeper Willie joining them on their expedition to his homeland. It would be one of the
astronaut Homer Simpson.
Astronaut Homer Simpson was taken into custody.
Oh, my butt looks so huge.
with Homer literally strangling a panda cub, the one animal that is absolute
Type voice. But overall, watching it again now, I just laugh at how some Americans saw us Aussies.
back, all the while with Homer Simpson in tow.
Are we in India yet?
No.
Are we in India yet?
No.
In the famous Australia episode. In episodes like that, the American writers are making fun of foreigners, but they're also
And as a god in season 17's Kiss Kiss Bang Bangalore.
Oh, I hate this subcontinent.
When Mr. Burns outsourced the nuclear power plant to India, Homer was. And in season 30, it revealed that Homer and Marge once joined a film crew in the 1980s, synonymous with China. And the real Chinese government also took exception to a scene when Homer visits. But the country emerging unscathed is an example of how The Simpsons now seems far tamer in. That really does trigger me about The Simpsons' representation of England is the big book of British.
Response to this episode actually changed as I got older. When I first saw it in a rerun when I was 9 years old, I did.
Sporting parody, Homer crashing into the Queen because if you come to London, you're sure to have tea with the Queen. Israel. In the episode The Greatest Story Ever Told, the
Not a knife, that's a spoon.
All right, you win.
Anyway, when Homer and Bart objected to a boot.
Despite this, Fox really hyped up the episode here in Canada, staging a special advance premiere in Toronto.
scones, seaside towns, and a castle or two. And back in 2003, there was this one actual episode being banned in China. Even now, it's unavailable to stream on Disney+.
For 2 weeks at the happiest place on earth, Tijuana!
Unfortunately, family reunion.
So you're back, son?
I suppose you'll be leaving.
And with no other humans about, it's perhaps the only trip where the Simpsons couldn't possibly. And a trip to the Netherlands was confined to only a few scenes in The Hague.
They're all draining clockwise. It's how I'd personally deliver that line if I was trying to sound like an Australian stereotype.
And personal days.
A bomb shabai means vote union.
Interesting to know that the family's Japanese adventure was the first of their international vacations to be banned from.
But when I watched it again as a teen and adult, I just laughed. The only thing that actually bothers me is their
There wasn't a whole lot of explicitly Canadian-themed content in this one. Including the sign that they pass when they enter Winnipeg, which I still constantly quote to any
Who had become the mayor of a small town in Tuscany after his huge tootsies made him the hero of Aurora Borealis.
Aurora Borealis.
And although the episode was ironic, seeing as their recreation of the 1989 Tiananmen Square protest resulted in the. All the while, Fox claimed absolutely no responsibility for the show's content. This
naked in a reservoir.
Aye, mate. What's the good word?
Oh, okay, that one, definitely.
They severely missed their life back in the States, and so returned to their old lives. That the episode did go heavy on stereotypes, but even still, from an Irish perspective, it was a fascinating. He was fired from the Quickie Mart for rampant hygiene violations. He embarked on a trip to India to ask for his job.
What happened, Tom?
Everyone got jobs, that's what happened.
And even though the days of a famous search for Colonel Hertz in Apocalypse Now, the family sailed downriver to bring Homer back so much that they even campaigned to have their name of their currency changed.
900!
In season 13's Blame It on Lisa.
Then it's settled. The Simpsons are going to Brazil.
And while there, they even tried to buy it, but it was rejected by Fidel Castro, who instead took seizures. Meanwhile, the Hello Kitty factory was implied to burn real cats in making their products, and manipulated a student exchange program which lured Bart to their supposedly quaint chateau. Only anger led to the episode being banned for years in Brazil, right up until 2012 when it was eventually
to make reference to the Simpsons movie, with Homer's Vision Quest boob lady making a brief cameo.
It was Homer now who ran afoul with Bart's old enemies. There were jokes about skinny models. Oh.
Are you really the head of the Quickie Mart?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
You?
Yes.
But the episode also showed Paris in a tailored around Abe's need for medical care abroad. Also, have you noticed that the writers have repeated godly ramblings, but instead were only interested in his tales of overtime pay, coffee breaks. At times, we would see him descend upon the rolling mist of the Scottish Highlands for a truly heartwarming Scotland. If the Simpsons were ever gonna go to Scotland, of course, China. In season 16's Goo Goo Gai Pan, Selma treated the family to a vacation.
And more enlightened politicians and all of that. The episode, of course, does ultimately make the argument that no
Tuscany last year. Anyway, speaking of Tuscany, this region is precisely where Sideshow Bob ran off to start. Adventures have taken them all over the globe, but sometimes there's not enough time for every country to.
I see you've played Noivy Spoony before so many times, and the idea that my country's parliament.
To introduce our next country, I invited the most Canadian I know, JJ McCullough. Brazil. The Simpsons undoubtedly caused their biggest uproar with their trip to Brazil possible, but no one could have predicted a rhino hatching from an egg, a giraffe sticking its head refereed at the World Cup. And apart from constant bribery and Homer's tease of a truly terrifying
better,
and the secret ingredients of Guinness.
You mean all the ingredients, but you don't.
We've lost our homes and everything we hold dear.
Aye.
All in all, Scotland did. Surprisingly, the Japanese didn't take too kindly to these references, so the episode never aired in Japan. 28. The episode showed that Cuba was pretty lax on customs, even allowing drug dealers.
Still, but I hear the monkey problem is even worse now.
And they weren't done trashing Brazil just yet, and respect for their arts and culture. And for all the show's jokes about France, The Simpsons just monuments, King David's tomb, and the Wailing Wall. In fact, the only thing that people may have been authentic Irish drinks.
I said an Irish drink! That's
Ask my resident Aussie friend Phantom Strider to help me out and to talk about the classic season 6 soaking on the beach.
I just don't want to feel no more pain.
make a whole video just deconstructing all of the many references, which luckily I did. But just to broadly, strip came in season 13 when Bart convinced the family to travel to Toronto so he could win back the heart.
And all the donkey meat in the world couldn't soften this betrayal. And the family's trip to Machu Picchu in Peru should have been a highlight, but there was only enough time for Prime Minister Tony Blair. Now, Tony's cameo apparently required 8 months of negotiations towards the entire episode. From false cliches like conga lines to children's show television. Mexico. Sombreros to...
They warned me Satan would be attractive. Let's go.
There was quite a bit more explicitly Canadian humor.
Sent to train the new local employees. So after navigating a world of cow worship, call centers arrived in the Cuban way of life.
Dad, you can't stay in Cuba for the first time.
A civilized and upscale town where the locals were now sober and hardworking. Start a new life in season 17's The Italian Bob, which is where the Simpsons were tasked to drive Mr. Talk about every country the Simpsons have visited. And not only this, but I will also break down which government. Canada. So to a more positive light as its renowned nickname as the City of Love, with Homer and Marge taking atmospheric landscapes with lava fields drank in the Blue Lagoon, and even little pixies emerged during the
Come to France!
And although they were living at large and dining at the likes of the Eiffel Tower,
Simpson?
From now on, you're the Simps.
That'll save time.
And again in season 21, boobies.
Bert and Ernie left it to your imagination.
Believing that the $18 million, there are also many positive references to the French in this episode, with one of my personal favourite scenes, Shakira and cockfights. It's the happiest place on earth, according to Krusty.
Get ready
to depict Canada accurately, with only mild exaggerations of things that were always grounded in fact.
Promoted during Dublin's St. Patrick's Day parade. Shane Hegarty from the Irish Times wrote spoofing different nations. They almost seem a little too hesitant to poke fun at nations nowadays of the grape harvest. So, in a story that extended itself all the way to the Roman Colosseum, there's
during perp walks.
A lot of great gags in that one. The Simpsons then visited my own hometown of Chains.
Restaurant chains I never heard of.
Oh wait, now we are.
So after clinging onto the outside of an can't seem to stay away, when they were branded as anti-American and thrown into Alcatraz in season 15 and pretty well, and Homer being caught in a roundabout was pretty hilarious. Weirdly, the only thing syndrome, Homer believed he was the Messiah.
I am the Messiah!
Besides, a lot of us Aussies like to laugh at ourselves. Most of us don't take ourselves too seriously.
Although Bart's hosts were perhaps the most unflattering,
Vancouver was hosting the Winter Olympics, so this was quite a thrill for us as well. I remember being a little disappointed.
Antarctica. After Bart came clean about a hoax he
They could crash here in exchange for them being hilarious.
animal cruelty and the French police going to town on Homer's cheeks.
Country. This episode is by far the most in-depth treatment Canada has ever received from The Simpsons, and you could...
Its appearances include when the family headed south of the border when Bart was kidnapped by Sideshow Bob and Mola Ram from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Of course, the employees didn't really care about Homer's ever trip abroad in Season 1's The Crepes of Wrath. This is where Bart spent 3 months in the heart of portrayed the Cuban culture as being pretty relaxed in general, and Abe absolutely thrived.
Doesn't happen. Though our PMs are known for smashing a good schooner of beer. I like how the local...
How can I ever thank you?
Pay your bill!
I couldn't hear that last thing you said. Goodbye forever.
Paradise. Japan. You might find it interesting. Convenience worker. Cuba.
Besides 4? Woo!
Ireland. In family won a trip to Tanzania by finding a golden giraffe in an old box of animal crackers in season 12.
Look like idiots. According to writer-producer Mike Reese, The Simpsons staff were even condemned in the
African cliches and a series of bizarre visual gags that strayed too far from reality. Like with his World War II fling called Ed Wiener. And this episode had it all, a candy-fueled train.
Best job. It's curious, sometimes it is more fun when Americans kind of lean into... The episode aired as Simpsons Day. Toronto's mayor ultimately turned it down, however, perhaps...
Despite the mixed reception to the episode, the short-lived Fox backlot Australian had an attraction called the System. This is probably a reference to cane toads, which were introduced to our country in 1935. And
the suit of Nessie flooded the entire town, but luckily the locals did keep their cool composure.
Part of a scheme to smuggle prescription drugs from the Dudley Do Drugs pharmacy in Winnipeg.
So perhaps realizing that they'd been a bit too harsh in Brazil, the family finally returned when Homer
pointed, however, that none of the places they visited in Vancouver were particularly recognizable. That made up...
Simpsons did go pretty easy on the Italians.
When she kisses that jerk do.
Carl's affair with then First Lady Carla Bruni became an internet hit in France, and Bruni's... India. When Apu... Australia. So, to talk about the place down under, I thought it was best to ask... Iceland. When Carl stole their class in Hong Kong. Tanzania. The Bangalore feels like an early attempt to counteract Apu's position as the cliched Indian. During its 3 decades on air, the Simpsons family have stepped foot in over 20 countries and visited, poking fun at the Danes' love of fish smoking, carpentry, and cramped, overly efficient homes. The family,
which I think made many of the jokes far too gentle. I mean, come on, Simpsons, if we Canadians can handle a hockey...
Josh Weinstein said that they thought everyone in Australia had a good sense of humour and that they would get the jokes. Writers' complaint letters. The Newcastle Herald found the episode to be degrading and said it made Australians law that Bart has to be booted up the bum makes me chuckle to this day. Many of us are big Simpsons
come off pretty well in The Simpsons representation of it. Crystal blue waters, historical castles. France. The Simpsons took their first...
Apparently in The Simpsons, our Aussie MPs work away in pigsties and the Prime Minister day drinks
this theft of $1 trillion bill. So now being fugitives, they grab Mr. Smithers and fled to Cuba. Me love, Homer helps Mr. Burns capture the Loch Ness Monster. And who was their third? Well, for chicken. And even though the show did make quite a wise decision to focus on Homer's ignorance, it's still too worried about the backlash, trusting the Irish's sense of humour. In fact, the episode was even
went so heavy on the stereotypes is because they thought we Aussies could handle it. In the commentary for the episode,
managed to get in a few digs about nosy Icelanders and their inedible food.
No.
To Schmiles.
That's enough! That's enough!
I'm just like, yeah, we totally are, mate, and our kangaroos deliver the post. And I've quoted the line,
airing. During season 10's 30 Minutes Over Tokyo, Bart watched battling seizure robots, but only actually 50 minutes to record the thing. In fact, he only really agreed to appear if he
Australian Parliament. But it's certainly not the worst a country has ever been depicted in the show. The Simpsons was
Hey!
And that bit where the Canadian news refers to Homer as former US
showed that the locals were no help whatsoever when Homer struggled with the language barrier. Yeah, because in season 18, Lisa branded Brazil as the most disgusting place she's ever been.
Also making fun of how little Americans know about foreigners. Whereas in this episode, I think they tried a bit too hard.
Country's pleasures and benefits over America, the Simpsons still missed their home and just couldn't get
Suppose.
But Brazil was outraged by the show's implication that Rio is a poor, crime-ridden city. Irish bookmaker Paddy Power even took bets on what would happen in the episode, like what Irish
voting. It was taken as a grave insult to my country, the family, and the entire US Embassy.
Their own ignorance and depict a foreign country in a way that is very obviously ludicrous, like in
an advert promoting this particular episode that played non-stop on TV. It was a
But apparently not all Aussies took kindly to their country being mocked. Some annoyed Australians sent
Japan, nor China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, or even South Korea, although the latter did and not at all realistic. The bar brawls and river dancing may be over, the Simpsons still managed to squeeze in a joke or two about another swipe at Brazil only 2 years later in the Regina monologues.
Well, I'd like to return to Brazil.
Of course, they would have to include old Nessie in the narrative. So in season 10's Monty Can't Buy Me, duh, and the family also met the likes of J.K. Rowling, Sir Ian McKellen, and former Costa Rica showcased a tropical paradise with some very friendly monkeys.
We said
Played it underwhelmingly safe on this occasion. Italy, the Mexican desert when Krusty made his doomed epic, entitled The Sands of Space.
in years I feel young and healthy.
This country gave Grandpa his lust for life on every single continent, including Antarctica. So in this video I thought our talk focused on Carl's disgraced family history and the true meaning of friendship. The writers did also manage
But you still have our passports, right?
and aim to unite the people of faiths through universal love.
In fact, there was even a petition launched to change the national currency to dollary dues. Sadly,
The family escaped to Paris.
Mes amis, we hate America too!
Didn't prevent it from being one of the show's lowest rated episodes.
So, it was only a matter of time before The Simpsons visited America's Ned Flanders to the north. Their first trip
A lovely moonlight stroll through the city streets. So at least it all ended on a good note. Despite journeying to Mexico 3 times, the Simpsons have never spent too long in the country of Simpson Safari.
The Simpsons are going to Africa!
Yay!
A share of lottery winnings, Homer, Moe and Lenny followed him to his family home in Reykjavik. And I have to say, Simpsons family were invited to join the Springfield Bible study group to a trip to the Holy Land, and what
contrast to the backwards USA and the sort of country that an American like Lisa would be seduced by.
sarcastic apology proposing Homer fight the president of Brazil on Fox's Celebrity Boxing. Make a big impression. Homer crashed Moe's and Marge's business trip to Aruba, leaving a sleazy Moe.
Dollary dues!
So, first of all, let's start our trip in my home country of England. And me talking about all the times the Simpsons have visited the world, this isn't even mentioned.
everything.
Those frogs are eating all our crops!
The reason why the writers do remember feeling annoyed afterwards, like the country had been insulted.
That's a bloody outrage, it is!
Summarize, the episode basically plays into the idea that Canada is a sort of progressive wonderland in
Simpsons Down Under, which featured a recut version of the episode with new scenes. Oh, that would have been cool to see.
In his typical blunt way.
You've managed to survive on a crap hole island that looks like the
Locals apparently can't escape their convict roots either, and enjoy a good game of knifey spoony.
That's not
predictable jokes about Canadians' politeness.
Two young Yankee Doodles have turned this match into a dance.
The Devil Wears Nada, where Homer accompanies Carl to the Nuclear Power Expo in the City of Light, Denmark. Season 29's Throw Grandpa to the Dane is another episode for it to be a crummy shack in the middle of nowhere. It was here where they used Bart for free labour right up until... First off, I just want to say that I love Italy. I love it so much that I even got married until the tourism campaign was thrown down the drain, all because of The Simpsons. Rio's tourism board received backing from the channel JJ.
Hello Lydia, and hello friends. Glad to be back. I'm sure you are too modest to bring this
Episode, Bart vs. Australia. So take it away, Phantom Strider.
G'day, because of Bart's outrageous bill for $900 dues. After making a mockery of the dungeon.
At the end of season 25's YOLO, Homer was very briefly seen visiting Barcelona in Spain.
Hey Lydia? Yeah, the Simpsons were a major pain in the rears when they visited Australia. And not just
offended by was the fact that Homer fell asleep in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
This is the tomb of the most...
Hundredth family and squatters' Krog. Bart was forced to make a public apology in the Australian Parliament.
Anyway, back to you, Lydia.
Short-lived enlightenment at a Buddhist monastery in South Korea. The Van Houten's joint family vacation in
Vancouver in season 21. This episode aired in the winter of 2010, around the time that
Japan did end in an enjoyable and self-aware way, with an endearingly a story memorable for Homer's disappearing Speedo on Copacabana Beach and subsequent buying fish.
The only thing that keeps me from living here is that fish that swims up your pee stream.
The Simpsons